Did you see the thumbnail for this video? The GMC Syclone, the 2023 GMC Syclone is one coming on the way. That's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so look how amazing this GMC Syclone regular cab truck looks, and we can only imagine what is underneath the hood of that. Well, I guess we can talk about that obviously as well. But I think we need to talk about the GMC Syclone history very quickly before we get to the new version, because I'm sure there's many of you out there who aren't really even aware of what this truck is or was, pardon me, because there was only just under 3,000 of these built back in the day, and they were built in between 1991 and 1993. But I want to go just a quick history and talk about what was the GMC Syclone and what is the new GMC Syclone. Well, of course, it was based off of, you can tell by looking at the pictures, the GMC Sonoma truck. But this was obviously a much more sport-orientated, and as I mentioned off the top, they only built it between 91 and 93 in that range, and they only built a maximum number of 2,995 of them. There was 3 that weren't counted for. I don't know if they were prototypes or whatever. So actually, I guess you could say 29. Anyways, you could say 3 more than 2,995. But as far as what is, what was underneath the hood, first and foremost, it had a 4.3-liter turbocharged and intercooled V6 producing 280 horses at 4,400 RPM. And the torque was 350 pound-feet of torque at 3,600 RPM. 0 to 60 time, 4.3 seconds. Had a transmission, had that 4-speed transmission in it, and the quarter mile was 14.1 seconds, and it did have a Bob Warner all-wheel drive. Now, of course, I understand that those numbers and those 0 to 60 times don't sound phenomenal, but for its time, this thing was a rocket ship in comparison to well, for sure any other truck out there, but even amongst cars, it was beating Porsches, Ferraris, and even Corvettes when it came to that acceleration, to that power. We're talking a pickup truck. It had obviously a huge cult following, and has a huge cult following, despite the fact of its limited years. And I think that's why, because it was such a cool, unit that was made, but only for that little bit of time. And of course, we also see that they did make the GMC Typhoon, which was the Jimmy version, same motor, everything else, a little bit slower 0 to 60 time. But that was, their other version of that, which, by the way, a very famous actor drives one of those, or at least did. I'm not sure if he still does, but probably still does. Clint Eastwood actually has a GMC Typhoon of his own. But really quickly, before we go too far, I want to show you something really cool. It's a company that I partnered up with. And that is this company right here, Rockform. Beyond protection is their slogan, and that's for a reason, because they make the most versatile and rugged phone cases around. In fact, this is my rugged phone case for my iPhone 14 Pro Max. I actually have the metallic ring on here as well, which you can use different ways. But in the cases themselves is built in a magnet, and that is because you can utilize it with these different mounts for the inside of your vehicle. First and foremost, as you can see, here's the magnetic suction phone mount. All I have to do is slap that on there, and then I have navigation right up there. I can switch that over to my camera and have a dash cam built right in, easy to take off and on, just like that. Then there is the dual magnet vent mount, one of my favorites as well, easy to use. It just, goes right in there on your vent. Slap your phone on there, same way. And of course, you can obviously swivel this around to whichever way is going to work best for you. And then lastly, the one I wanted to show you today too is the dual magnet vent swivel mount, pardon me, which is this bad boy right here. You just peel that off, it's 3M, stick that up on there, and you can adjust and swivel it to whichever way you want, depending on how your dash is laid out. That is Rockform, ROKFORM.com. Go check them out. Now, a couple other little details about this, Syclone, aside from obviously what was just underneath the hood, was that it was, produced in collaboration with PAS, which is Production Automotive Services. It was the first 4-wheel anti-lock braking system on a pickup truck with discs up front and drums in the rear. It had sport-calibrated suspension that lowered the height by 2 inches, had 16-inch aluminum wheels wrapped in 245/50 Firestone Firehawk tires. It did come automatically with a truck tonneau cover as well by Lexus. And it had, different things like air conditioning and a stereo and even cruise control. It had power adjustable steering, tilt steering is what the word I'm looking for. And even in the highlights in some of the videos are talking about the fact that it had the lights on the mirrors when you drop the things down. It had mirrors, the exterior mirrors would fold in, and there were power exterior, there were some things that we just obviously more than take for granted nowadays that were cool and newer features and high-end features on that truck at the time. But let's switch our attention from what was to what is, or what at least could be, a new version of the GMC Syclone based off of the new GMC Sierra, platform of trucks. Now, what I say could be is because, unfortunately, as real as these pictures look and as fantastic as they look, this is actually a rendering. Yes, it's a rendering done by Adry53 Customs on Instagram, ADRY53 Customs on Instagram. He did this for a company called Hot Cars. Definitely give those folks a follow as well. But this is his rendering of it. And of course, I think, did a fantastic job with it. I think it looks great. We can see it in multiple colors. But what would this have under the hood? What would this look like aside from the actual, appearance? What would this have being a modern version of what was the GMC Cyclone? And, the version that Adry53 Customs designs, it does pay some homage to, the original truck with a sleek modern design. It has that bold grille, aggressive line, and sporty stance. I mean, look at that hood. Inside the Cyclone, it would also probably be packed with the advanced technology, including, the major, the big touchscreens that we're seeing, those 13.4-inch color touchscreens we're seeing in the trucks now. And of course, things like the premium sound system and, massaging seats and all of the things that we're used to in our more luxurious trucks. Now, underneath the hood, what I think the Cyclone would be powered with would be, probably the supercharged 6.2-liter V8 that produces, well, if they use the one that was in the Cadillac V, over 600 horsepower, up to 680 horsepower and 550 foot-pound of torque. Quite a bit of a difference from what the old one was, but of course, we're talking modern. The other thing, too, is this powerful engine would be paired with a 10-speed auto transmission. It would give the Cyclone a 0 to 60 time of probably in around the range of 3.5 seconds. Now, what I find interesting, of course, is, with this, I know I'm talking with the 6.2-liter with around 680 horsepower, maybe 650 horsepower, supercharged and then around that range. And you may be thinking, wow, there's other trucks out there that have that. But this is going to be built as a regular cab in a much lighter platform, more stance to the ground, but different type of tires. This is not an off-road truck, clearly, obviously. You're barely getting over curbs with this thing, right? So I think that, as amazing as this looks, I think having that power with it too would be such an incredible road truck if they actually made this Cyclone the way that, it's being envisioned here. And then, of course, not only that, but you would have the all-wheel drive ability with the truck as well. Now, the older version did have a version of the all-wheel drive, but of course, you would have the all-wheel drive in this. I don't think it would just be a rear-wheel drive. I think they would have an all-wheel drive system to it to get more of that power, more of that traction, of course, to the ground to get this thing moving. But that is a truck I wanted to share with you today. I love the old ones. I know now they're very expensive to get your hands on. I'm sure they're 50 grand plus. I haven't even looked, to be honest with you, about pricing on them, but I'm sure, because the limited number of them are out there, just how cool the truck is, they're hard to get your hands on. And this new one, with the prices we see now, I can imagine the price, but hey, it's one of those things that if you're buying that kind of truck, it's a toy, so you've got that kind of money, and it is what it is, right? But again, thanks so much for watching. Until next, everybody, take care.